Welcome to Productive Joy with Dr. Christie, where fun meets action.
Hi, friends. Welcome to Productive Joy. As always, I have a fabulous guest with me today who I know is going to give you some nuggets of wisdom that's going to change your day or your life. Who knows? But before we get into our time with Ken, I just want to make sure you're following this podcast. If you're not, you won't get alerts that tell you when these fabulous people are joining me, and I really want you to. So make sure that you subscribe or follow, whether that's on YouTube or Spotify or Apple or wherever you're getting your podcasts. And then tell me what you want to hear. I absolutely can't meet your needs if I have no idea what your needs are. So, as Productive Joy was designed, this is meant to give you a shot of B12 and an opportunity to learn something new that you didn't already know going into this day. So, today we are blessed enough to have with us Ken Rusk. Ken is an author, but he is also a brand new grandfather to Vivian Rose. He is an addicted golfer, as well as a car enthusiast. Specifically, his first car that he saved 7 years for was a Porsche. And, well, maybe not his first car, but his first dream car. Maybe I should be more specific. And he really loves to boat. He lives part-time in Florida, part-time in Ohio, a little bit all over the place. And I am so excited to introduce Ken to you. Ken, welcome to Productive Joy.
Oh, thank you, Christy. Thanks. I appreciate you having me here.
And I heard that you might be an expert podcast guest. How many different podcasts have you been on?
Well, I think this is number 277. It's been quite a whirlwind since the book came out, especially after it. I was very blessed that it made a bestseller. I had no idea that was going to happen, and so once it hit that, yeah, it went kind of crazy. So it's been quite busy.
277 times. All right. So I always ask for a story at the beginning that gets people to want to keep listening, but I'm going to be specific with yours. I want to know the most bizarre podcast experience you've had in 277.
Well, that's easy. I don't think that people were looking at the qualifications of the bookers when they booked me on this one. It was a combination of coming out in the transgender world, and it was tattoos, and it was walking around the earth in costumes, like animal costumes.
Furries? No way.
Yeah, it was a all this. There was a panel of 5 people, and when the camera went on, I was the fifth one, and when I looked at this show, I was like, okay, how did this how did this happen? But first off, let me just say, whatever anybody wants to do with themselves, that's fine. You can do whatever you want. I was just surprised that they booked a blue collar guy who talks about vision onto their show, and I think that might have been an accident.
Oh my gosh, that is amazing. So ironically, I work mostly in the education space, although my personal business is outside of education. But I was at a superintendent's conference here in the great state of Florida. And the day after we were leaving, the furries were having a convention. And that was my first experience with 2,000 friends who like to wear outfits and sniff each other and do all the things. And I learned so many things. I learned so many things. But we
Yeah.
were just talking about that yesterday, and now here you are. Okay, you know what? Well done. And now, friends, you're going to need to listen because this is going to be good. All right, Ken. So you do have a book. Your book is called Blue Collar Cash, which sounds like a whole lot of fun. I am pretty sure there's a story leading up to why you decided to write this book. So why don't you give us kind of your origin story that got you to the point where you felt like you needed to put this book into the world?
Well, I started as a ditch digger in a ditch digging company when I was 15, and I proudly say that because I still do that to this day. I'm in a lot of different construction businesses, and one of them is my core business, which I started in 1986 with 6 people, and I think we're up to 200 and some employees now. So it's been a heck of a ride. But in that time, you become, whenever you're hiring a large group of people or you're building a large company, you tend to interview a lot of people, and so you almost turn into an involuntary life coach. Okay. I have no training whatsoever. I never went to college. I don't have any letters after my name at all. And so, but you still have to keep people, in their first car. You have to help them clear up their driver's license, or maybe help them with their first apartment or house, or their first credit card, whatever it might be. And I started to work on culture 30 some years ago, before culture was even cool. And what was interesting about that is, you build culture through the relationships that you have with your people and the belief that you really care about their futures. I always say that I can't get what I want, nor can my company get what it wants or needs until all of you get what you want first, which is absolutely true. And so one thing led to another. And I've been doing this for a long time now, and it works. And so the visionary side of living and the anticipatory side of living is something that I really believe in. And so, yeah, someone came to me and said, "Hey, you got stuff for a book here and you don't even know it." So I just started jotting down stories about friends of mine that were blue collar entrepreneurs, and they had overcome the most amazing challenges to do this personally and professionally. And yeah, that's how it got started.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Well, okay, so back up. You might not have any official letters after your name, but you have a whole lot of life letters after your name. And speaking from someone who has letters, it means nothing if you don't learn something in the process, right? Like I could put a whole bunch of letters after my name and know no things, but you've chosen to learn the things and then apply the things to change the trajectory of lives. If you're talking to a 17-year-old about their first credit card and saying, "Okay, here's the do's and don'ts," you're teaching them a lesson that's going to last a lifetime. So thank you for using the knowledge that you gained to make other people better. That's amazing. And so the book itself isn't just about your story, it's about the stories of others you knew who decided to, "You know what? I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to build a business."
Yeah, so I noticed well, first off, if you go back to high school, when we were in high school, you could walk down the hallway and look one way and see someone changing a transmission on a Mustang, and you could look over here and somebody's doing someone's hair and nails. You could go over here and somebody was wiring an outlet or someone was building a small table. We had shop class, and that's where people accidentally learned how cool it was to be a tradesman or a tradeswoman, to have your own business and be an
Mhm.
entrepreneur. And, somewhere along the line, they decided to get rid of those
Mm.
great machines and put computers in there, which was fine. We needed to learn computers, but I always wondered, looking back, why was it one or the other? Why didn't we have both, right? So you eliminated all those people from going into the trades, and then you have this perfect storm, Christy, of where people are on their cell phones now, instead of in the backyard, building and raking and shoveling and planting and doing doing all the things that we did as kids, building tree forts or whatever. They're trying to build Minecraft on their cell phone, and that's just not the same experience. Okay, it's just life experiences. So if you pair that up with the fact that colleges are really good at shaming parents into saying it's either college or else,
Uh,
and that's not true. We know that's not true. So you have this perfect storm of almost stigma against blue collar work. And I wanted to undo that because I've lived an amazing life being a blue collar worker or blue collar entrepreneur. All my friends have done the same thing. And I kept sitting there. I said, why isn't anybody telling this story?
mm,
Everyone was kind of saying, well, you got to get a 4-year degree or you're going to be flipping burgers the rest of your life. And that's never been true.
no.
So it is for the people who make money in colleges, for sure. But yeah, someone had to tell the story. And so for me, it was all about kind of like clearing the air of all that stigma and getting people to understand that in this world in the United States today, fully 50% of the people in this country are still working with their hands to this very moment.
Yeah.
And the fact that less and less people are willing to do it means that's where the money's going big time. And that's where all the opportunity is.
Wow. Well, and okay, you took me back to my growing up years. So I grew up, well, I was born in Las Vegas. Believe it or not, people really are born there. And I lived there until I was 11 because my father was in the entertainment industry. But then we moved to Independence, Virginia, where there were twice as many cows as people in one stoplight.
There you
And I
go.
went to a high school of 600 students. It was a countywide high school, but we had Grayson County High School, and then we had Grayson County Vocational School,
Sure.
both under the same roof. But just like you're saying, you were either in that hallway or you were in the academic hallway. And I remember taking typing because that was a class, keyboarding specifically on a typewriter with the white,
Oh,
correction
yeah.
tabs, and looking down the hall and thinking, it is more fun in these classrooms, right? Because people were like, it was nursing and it was cosmetology and it was
Sure.
wood shop, and they made some really cool things. Now, it does still exist in some places because I have a dear friend who is an assistant principal at a high school now in Radford, Virginia, and her students just made her a step to get into her Jeep because she's short and it's tall.
Perfect.
And so, right, those
Perfect.
things are still happening. But what I heard you say that I think is so important is that we've got to get rid of the stigma that there's anything wrong with going in whatever route you are wired to go. So I have twins, and my twins are a boy and a girl. And our daughter has her master's degree at 23 and is a teacher and is loving, being a kindergarten teacher and doing all the things. Our son dropped out of college his freshman year. COVID hit, and he didn't want to keep going. And he's the account manager for a huge hotel and running things in the hospitality industry. So I say that because I've lived it. I get
Yeah.
it. So what advice would you have for a parent? Let's go that direction of, I'm raising my kids and I went to college or I didn't go to college. How do I advise my kids to follow their heart and not feel like they're pigeonholing themselves?
Well, first off, you have to watch them from an early point because some kids are good at breaking things and fixing them again. Some kids are just naturally good at creating things or are naturally good at, you know, being in the labor side of the field. They like to be outside. They like to get dirty. They like to do those kinds of things. So you just have to keep an eye on who they are as they're growing up and not really try to wholly change that so much. Again, I wrote an open letter to parents on my website and I said, I understand because I'm a parent. I understand that you birthed your child, you clothed them and you sheltered them and you fed them and you protected them and you taught them what you could. And now you think the only way you could be considered a great parent is if they have some expensive degree on the wall. That's the part where the story goes south because that's the part that isn't true, but you're being told it's true. You're being led down that path that isn't exactly accurate. And it's always funny because I've been to parties before where there's parents milling around and you'll hear these stories. Well, my daughter's going to Vanderbilt. Oh, my daughter's going to Ohio State. Oh, my daughter's going to the University of Virginia, whatever. And then they'll invariably you'll hear, well, what's Mary's son doing? Oh, well, he's just a plumber. And I'm like, okay, well, I know that kid. All right. He's now got like 6 vans, 12 employees, and he's making a fortune. Okay.
Yeah.
So it isn't necessarily the education is not necessarily the end game. Living well, being financially independent, being able to take care of yourself, and looking towards the future, being able to visualize what you want, being a productive, producing person in society, that really is the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is to drive by your son or daughter's house and say, look at how well they're living.
Yeah. Yeah.
They have a great family and they have great friends and they have a great fiscal situation and they're solid and they're gaining assets and they see what they want their life to look like. That to me is being a successful parent, not necessarily, the frame certificate on the wall. So
No, and it's about who they become. And we very
right.
seldom ask that question, right? Where are they going to school or what are they going to be? But I want to know who they're going to be. I watch my daughter with 6-year-olds and I am amazed at how great she is because she is who she is supposed to be in that classroom. I watch my son lead people. The kid has had as many as 80 employees. I've never had 80 employees, right? Like I am amazed at how well he leads people. And so I fully support and understand what you're saying. And I see both sides of the coin because I've lived both sides of the coin. And I think that's cool. So if I were to pick up your book and open to a random page, would I get a how to? Would I know what to do? Or is it more about here are some success stories that have gotten people from point A to point Z?
Well, that's a great question because not only do you get the how to in the book, but I built a course around it too because
Nice.
I wanted people to very inexpensively change their lives like this afternoon. Not read a book, put it on the shelf, and then hope you retain it and then forget about it 3 months later. I wanted people to say, I read Ken's book, and because of it, I took this course, and within a few weeks, now I'm looking at my life totally different. So the answer is yes, because I wanted to give examples to help remove the stigma,
Mhm.
but I also wanted to teach you how to use the visual side of your brain, how to recognize that emotions are an absolute choice and filter the good ones in and the bad ones out. I wanted to show you how to plan and forecast what your life could look like the way you want it, the way only you see it, not the way somebody else sees it for you. And then to be able to break down goals, which are really pathways. I think the word goal is way overused in life.
Mm,
Okay.
mm.
So I break down each one of those pathways to show you how to gain the things that you want in that puzzle that you call your vision board or your life. And I know a lot of people use the word vision boards, but I wanted to be very specific on how yours came out. You're almost building a Pinterest board for your life, but you're going to put exact pathways to gaining each one of those things on that board. And they're not all physical things. Some of them are more mental things like your sports, your health, your hobby, your give back moments. So it's a good blend. It's a good balanced way of living. I've done it enough and I've seen it enough with a couple thousand people that I've interviewed to know how to create balance with people. And I just think if you can have your own personal customized nirvana, you got to start with that and then figure out a way to go get it.
Oh my gosh, you're fun. Okay, so speaking of fun, because this is my most favorite question to ask. It's why I named the podcast what I named it, because I have yet to hear two definitions that are the same. So you started out by saying I was a ditch digger at 15, and then I continued to do that, but I became a life coach in the process, and I've shifted culture along the way. So if that was really your focus, could you please describe for me productive joy?
Oh, productive joy. That yeah. For me, it's what I do every day. So I have a big a black glass board that hangs on the hallway in my business, and on that board we have these colorful markers, like neon colored markers, and we have probably 100 different goals that people are chasing right now, currently chasing.
Hmm.
So I'm talking about I'm going to go to Spain next year. I'm going to visit my cousin. It's going to cost me $3,000. I'm going to save $60 a week for a year, or $30 a week for 2 years, or whatever it is. They're dated, they're signed. There's a goal, there's a date, there's an end date, there's an execution date. It's all up there. And productive joy for me is watching everyone in the building high-fiving each other because they see each person chasing something and they're all anticipating it like you anticipate a vacation. They're all anticipating it at the exact same time, even though their goals are different. So you see this kind of like third person sitting on everyone's shoulder that's just celebrating the pathway. And for me to watch that energy as a collective, that's productive joy for me.
Oh, that's beautiful. And how great that you are living out what you're teaching people, because have a physical way to celebrate and notice. And it's total accountability, right? Like if I put it on that board, somebody is going to ask me, "Hey, how are you doing on that goal?" And when I don't do what I said I was going to do, I've got to face that. So that's a fabulous way to get people to accomplish those goals. What's the biggest, most I call it, actually I don't. A friend of mine calls it a BHAG, a big, hairy, audacious goal. What's the biggest BHAG that you've got on the board right now? Not you.
Um,
Well, maybe it's you. I don't know, but
well,
somebody has
yeah, I
one.
mean, mine was to write the book. That was a big one.
Check.
Yeah, check. I wanted to go back to Scotland with 16 of my friends and play golf for 10 days. We did that one. We're constantly putting those up, but there's people up there right now buying cars, buying houses, learning Spanish. They're traveling internationally. There's people that are adding on to their house. There's people that are paying off debt. There's people that are getting rid of credit cards. There's people that are losing weight, getting in shape. It's all over the board. But the important thing is what you said a minute ago, because I would bet you that almost 100% of us would have never jumped off the high dive board unless we had 5 or 6 of our friends down below going, "You can do this. Come on, let's go." And if you don't have that, it's sometimes you chicken out and go back the other way and climb down. So the biggest thing about that is this collective sharing and this collective high-fiving of each other and putting their hand on their shoulders when they need to
Oh,
keep them straight. So
I
uh,
love it. I
that's
love that. Well, and a true high five actually does release endorphins in your brain that increases every positive feeling. So
absolutely.
I love that there are some actual and proverbial high fives going on in your business every single day. What a great job you're doing. So, okay, somebody breathed this into you. Maybe it was a lot of somebody's, but where do you think you got this idea of, okay, culture has to come first. I can't just do the job. If I just do the job, we're never going to be successful. Who taught you that?
Well, I had two really great mentors. My father was a Marine, and I have four brothers, and we all at one point were under the age of 9.
Woo!
So he read the house. He ran the house like a barracks in a good way. Bounce the quarter off the bed. Make your bed and all that stuff. So he was he was pretty tough, but he was good tough. He was like what I say. We deserved it tough. You know what I mean? And so he became successful from nothing, and I got to watch that change because when I was a young boy, he was chopping lettuce for $14,000 a year at a Kroger store, and then he became successful later in life, and I got to see that whole transition. So he was one, and then the first gentleman that I worked for, he was kind of the opposite of my father. He was successful as well. He was more of a playboy kind, like he was a loved life guy, loved parties and loved things and loved to celebrate and like boats and cars and traveling and all that. And I got to kind of assist him in organizing some of those things. So I was imprinted with, living well. Okay. So between the two of those driving forces, I had plenty of schooling on how to get it right eventually.
Well, you learned work hard, play hard, literally from
Absolutely.
from your two role
Right out
models.
right outside that door, there's a sign in neon that says work hard, play hard.
Perfect. Well, you know what? That and why not, right? Like my husband and I will often say to each other, "Why are we working so hard if we're not ever going to enjoy it?" Right? You've
Works.
got to take a minute to say, "Okay, I haven't seen you in a week, like, and I like
Right.
you, so why haven't we spent any time together?" I think
Right.
you are full of wonderful life lessons that you've clearly earned, right? Like you didn't, nobody handed this to you. Nobody said, here's everything you need to know on a silver platter. Instead, you internalized those lessons and you said, all right, how can I replicate it for others? How can I create the proverbial whiteboard or blackboard of excitement for people so that they can enjoy what they're doing? I think that is amazing. Thank you for not keeping it to yourself and for sharing it. This podcast was designed for leaders who want to do it differently, who aren't okay just doing it the way everybody's always done it, because ultimately, if we're not creating joy, people will find somewhere else to be. We quit things that aren't fun. So fun means, in my opinion, that you're valued and appreciated. Fun means that you have a voice and you're allowed to use it. And fun means that you're able to leverage your talents for the greater good. That's how we create fun for people. And you're doing that every single day. So well done. Well done. All right. My final piece to you, because here's the hard part, is I could talk to you for days and I'm not allowed because people won't listen for days. I'm
Sure.
not Joe Rogan yet, right? Like, so instead, I have a couple rapid fire questions for you.
Sure.
Are you ready to be
Absolutely.
rapid fired?
Yeah, rock
Okay.
on.
Rapid fire number one. And I can't wait because I think you probably have multiple answers. But what is your definition of fun?
Oh, my definition of fun is being spontaneous and having the ability and the choice to do that. So,
So, like going for what did you say, 16 days in Scotland?
yeah, there's an awesome balance between planning 3 or 4 years out for something major like that and being spontaneous and saying, "Hey, let's go do this." So, I like to bounce back and forth between being spontaneous and doing some planning because planning gives you that anticipation that I just love, but yet, "Hey, let's go play 9 holes" is spontaneous and, take a few bucks off my buddy and have a beer when we're done. So,
Yeah.
yeah, there's
It's
there's
important. Well, and you
everything
said
in
you like to
between.
boat. You can be a little more spontaneous when you have a boat
Yeah,
than if you
that
don't,
too.
right?
Absolutely, yeah. Do a lot of that, especially down in Florida.
Yes. Well, I was going to say you said you're close to Lake Erie though. Do you ever boat there or you only boat
Yeah,
down?
no, we take the boat back and forth, so it comes up here for the summer, and then we take it down there for the winter, so it's used pretty much all year round.
Oh my gosh, that's pretty amazing. Well done, sir. Well done. Okay. How do you know that you're showing up as your authentic self?
Well, I kinda stick to what I think I'm good at, and I have a lot of feedback because if people are constantly putting goals up on the board and they're constantly believing in themselves and they say this without saying it, "You know what? I think I can make my life happen with and through Ken's company here. I think I can make my world work by hanging out here." Then I know I'm authentic because I really want you to win as much as possible because if you win, then therefore I will win eventually. Companies are linear creatures. There's input, there's work, there's creation, there's product or service, there's revenue, hopefully there's sales and profit. and then you're at the end of that line always. So why wouldn't you want everyone in front of you to win? Because that way you're going to win big after all.
Oh my gosh, it's good. It sounds like really sound advice to me. Okay, how do you channel your best self on your worst days?
Oh, I just walk out in the hallway and look at that board. I just walk out there and say, so many people are doing so many great things at the exact same time. How can I be that? How could I possibly be down? And then I always remember that down is a choice. What do they say? Frustration is the opposite of joy, right? Curiosity is the opposite of fear. There's so many of these opposites. And if you just recognize that what's getting you down is the opposite of what you really want to feel like, then just walk out in the hallway and high five some people. And that just flips right back to square one.
Oh, I love it. And I love that you have truly created a physical reminder of what we know to be true, right? We know we all have pathways, not goals. We all have pathways that we're working towards, and we all have things that we're striving to be, but we don't see it. And so we kind of forget it, and we're, too busy in the stuff. And you prevent that from happening for you and your employees.
Well,
Wow.
that's important. That's an important point, because if you looked around my office right now, you'd see 100 photographs of where I've been, things I've done, people I've been with. And so that's a constant reminder when I make my protein shakes in the morning, which I've done every day for the last 40 years. I have this rotating frame, and it just rotates all these memories and wonderful things that life brings you, like grandkids and family and events and memories and vacations and things that you drive or fly in or whatever. And so that to me is, it's not he who ends up with the most stuff wins. It's he or she who ends up with the best memories wins.
Mhm.
And so that's kind of how I do it.
I love it. Okay, but I have to ask, and this is random, what's in your protein shake?
Oh, well, there's three different kinds of plant protein. There's a certain type of Ceylon cinnamon that I use. I use sea salt water. I use pure virgin olive oil. I use, let's see, red fruit powder, green fruit powder, digestive enzymes, a homemade cashew milk that I make every other day, and then a bunch of
And you
local
are not
fruit.
playing. Okay. And this, you said you've been doing it for 40 years. I'm going to guess this recipe has changed a little over the 40 years.
Yeah. I went through a peanut butter and chocolate phase, and then I went back out of there because it's too hard to clean the machine after all the peanut butter spun around there for a while. But yeah, sometimes I throw oatmeal in there, and it just depends on what I'm feeling. But it's pretty much, it keeps building on what happens when knowledge happens. Because as you know, we know more about our bodies now than we've ever known.
100%.
So to throw a few other things in there that are good for you, like probiotics or whatever, yeah, that certainly gets added to the pile here and there.
I love it. Well, and I asked because it's clear that you have decided to take care of yourself, body and mind, right? You figured out a long time ago and have for 40 years been consistent about it, that consistency is key, and that if you continue to look for the bright spots, you'll see them. And if you bring other people alongside you, the journey is a whole lot more pleasant, and you can make others around you better just by being good yourself. So that's impressive. You're fun. I have one more question for you though.
Oh,
Very important question. So, as an educator, I know that people can really only remember one major thing when they're in the learning phase. And I'm hopeful that they have stuck with us for this learning phase. What's the one thing that you really want people to take away from the last 30 minutes?
well, I think that I want them to take away they have the free license to start using the visual side of their brain to control their future. Nobody does it. We lead these reactionary lives where we react to weather, and we react to timing, and we react to what we dress in, and we react to other people's attitudes and opinions and whatever. But one thing we all own is our ability to dream, take those dreams from your head to put them on paper, own your future. You're in control of it. So you control it all. Start today and make your life exactly the way you want.
Oh my gosh, I think that is very, very sound advice. I'm also going to guess people are going to want to be able to find you. So, how might somebody find this fabulous book and all of the nuggets of wisdom that live in it?
Well, my website is kenrusk.com, and you can kind of play around in there and see what we're doing with the course and the book. My guys have me on socials at Ken Rusk Official. I think it is what Ken Rusk Official. And so you can see what we're doing on Instagram and TikTok and those kinds of things. But again, most of just so everybody knows that the money from the course and the money from the book, I donate to charities anyway, because my life was good before I wrote this book, and I'm very blessed and very grateful. So that's how I help other people in the process.
That's pretty awesome. Do you pick which charities, or does it like what do you support? I'm just curious.
Well, I have one charity that supports non-college success stories
Love it.
on taking non-traditional college degrees. I have another one. I'm a big supporter of Make-A-Wish, have been for 30 years. Another one's called Mom's House. I'm sure you've heard of Boys and Girls Club. You've heard of Junior Achievement. So anything that can help young people shorten their learning curve is what I try to get involved in.
Well, you clearly have a mission that you're living out every single day. And I am so honored that you took the time to spend 30 minutes with Productive Joy, because you know what? Nobody would get to hear your story in this little space if it weren't for you being willing to tell it. So thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your brilliance. Thank you for not choosing to hide it from the world, but instead share it, and specifically for sharing it here on Productive Joy. You were awesome.
Thank you very much, Christy. I appreciate it.
All right. And friends, I'm telling you, I am running into some really brilliant people who have some really brilliant things to share. So please share this episode with everybody that you know. Let them know that this is the kind of nuggets of wisdom that they'll get on Productive Joy, and get excited about what's to come, because people like Ken are coming out of the woodwork, and we're so, so honored. Go get his book. It will be well worth it. And look at the cute picture in the back. If you haven't been watching, you should take a peek real quick so that you know what you're looking for. And I just hope that today and every day you find a way to turn fun into action.